Veritas Aquitus by Bones Boy 15, Chapter 22, Heirloom. That flight was way too long. This better be worth it, pervy sage, Naruto shouted over the roar of the engine as he and his team disembarked from the bulkhead behind Jiraiya. His eyes squinted when the harsh sunlight assaulted them, only relaxing when he lifted a hand up to shield them. Well, if you had decided to partake in the conversation, it would have gone faster for you, brat, Jiraiya huffed. Ignoring the stink eye that his godson gave him in return, he sent a grin over his shoulder at his followers. Ah, where's your sense of adventure gone, Naruto? Don't tell me that you've started to convert into a scholar. That's like saying Kurama is going to go into priesthood. Sasuke sent a smirk to the faunest. Fuck you, Uchiha. Lord Jiraiya, the bulkhead piloted the call from his vehicle's PA system. I'm going to have to head over to Shade to refuel. It's closer than Vale is at this point. That's fine. Be back here tomorrow by noon, Jiraiya called back. The pilot gave him a thumbs up before the bulkhead rose up and flew off. The 14s who'd watched the interaction looked around their landing location. For a few miles there was nothing but desert, and beyond that, to the south at least, there was a mountain range. To the east, another mountain range, and to the west, yet a third mountain range. The northern area was pretty clear, but still there was a lot of desert. He's brought us here to die, Kurama deducted. He grimaced. Shit, if I thought I was going to die here, I would have at least tried to kiss Vel first. So there is something between you and Velvet, Sasuke accused with a smirk. Oh damn, I forgot you guys had worse hearing than I do, Kurama grumbled. He thought the bullhead's engines would still cover his musing. The faunus glared at his teammates and held a finger up, most surprisingly not his middle one. One peep of this to anyone, including your unholy female duplicate. Naruto pursed his lips in mild annoyance when Karma gave him a pointed look. Why did everyone insist on saying that? He wasn't into self-cessed, but the similarities between himself and his girlfriend were admittedly high. A second thought, if Yang had whiskers on her cheeks and blue eyes instead of lilac, meh, I prefer her personally. The hot body is just a bonus. Jiraiya had an urge to cry and pride again, but withheld from doing so. And I'll make sure that the rumor starts again. Kurama finished his threat. How exactly do you plan on doing that? Sasuke asked challengingly. We destroyed the negatives, blackmailed the others into silence, and even hid the original photograph in a secure facility where it would be watched over by men. Who? Haku asked. Sasuke and Naruto turned to him. Top men. The words were stern and forceful, telling Haku to drop the matter. When they looked back at Kurama, a picture was held up, and the two rivals paled considerably. Haku stared at the picture in shock, and Jiraiya whipped out his notebook. You guys are an inspiration all on your own. The fans of homosexual erotica romance will lose their shit over this, the super pervert mumbled to himself. In the picture were Naruto and Sasuke, possibly 10 or 11 in a classroom. A crowd of girls were in the back room, all horrified. The two boys, the focus, had wide eyes filled with disgust, shock, and horror. Why? Their lips were pressed together. You may have gotten rid of most of the copies, but I made duplicates of the negatives. Kurama finished with a smirk. He folded the picture up and tucked it into his jacket. You. Sasuke failed to find a proper insult that wouldn't come off as racist. Fuzzy-assed bastard. Naruto, however, did not have that problem. I try. Kurama smirked proudly as Haku looked between the two. I feel as though I'm missing some context here, he mumbled, dark brows furrowed together as he looked between his two other teammates. Did you two mean to? No, it was an accident, Naruto and Sasuke heatedly denied, glaring daggers at the now nervous Haku. Behind them, Jiraiya scribbled furiously into his notepad. This was literally gold. He was going to make a fucking mint off of the insinuated love triangle he was developing. Jiraiya almost giggled, but then a faint whisper passed through his head, reminded him of his duty and reason why the five of them were so far from the school. He sighed. Stupid voice being right. Okay, that's enough. We can tease the lovers here later. Jiraiya flipped his notebook shut and ignored the heated glares he received from his godson and the raven-haired boy. Jiraiya turned and pointed to the south. Off we go to our mission's destination, Alonzi. Jiraiya burst into a light run and was followed immediately by Kurama and Haku. Naruto and Sasuke lingered behind, their eyes twitching in annoyance. Naruto, I'm gonna kill your godfather. Get in line. You can skin Kurama while you're waiting. Hopefully he hasn't told anyone. That snapped Naruto from his funk. He swallowed nervously as he glanced at his still seething teammate slash rival slash friend. Yeah, right. Let's go catch up before they leave us behind. Good idea. About 15 minutes into their run, a distant town came into view. Jiraiya told them that the town was named Rejection, originally a faunist settlement that slowly grew into fame after the Faunist Rights War. Today it was a near ghost town. Naruto did his best to not shiver at the mention of his one paralyzing fear. With very few inhabitants of both species, human and faunus, living in peace. According to Jiraiya, they were here to deal with a grim problem, but Naruto found one issue with dealing with this supposed grim problem. There had been no sign of any grim for miles. Seriously, not one of the five huntsmen had caught sight of a single Nevermore, a Deathstalker, or even any creeps. This is extremely worrying since creeps could be seen wandering around in packs through the vast deserts of Bakuo. The bipedal Grimm were thought to be more accustomed to dry locations than the other known species on Remnant, even more so than Deathstalkers, who could be found hiding beneath Bakuo's sands but preferred cooler environments. Naruto was about to say something when Jiraiya held a hand up and stopped. Followed and stopped. Team Nox followed suit, and each team tried to regain their breath during the short break. So, Privy Sage, why'd we stop? Naruto asked once he got the wind back in his sails. Jiraiya shushed him and slowly craned his head around. If not for the mane of white locks that fell from the old man's head, the four boys would have seen that his eyes had closed and his nose had gotten a bit larger, as well as gained a few more warts. The difference quickly vanished when his eyes snapped open. Nobody move, he hissed. Naruto strained to hear him. The teens were still for a moment before they felt it. The ground rumbled lightly, and to their immediate left there was a spot of dust like water from a whale's blowhole. What the I said shut it! Jiraiya glared at Sasuke. He turned his attention to the ground. Watch the dirt! A mound that spanned over 6 feet in width slowly rose and fell as it started to circle the five huntsmen. Naruto gritted his teeth in annoyance and felt a bead of sweat form at the side of his head. The mound vanished, and near Kurama's feet, the dirt shifted slightly. Jiraiya glared at Kurama, keeping him in place. Don't move, the older man mouthed. He pressed a finger to his lips and then moved his eyes down to the dirt. From the ground emerged a filthy snake-like creature, red in color, with yellow horns sprouting from what Naruto assumed to be the top and bottom of its mouth. His thoughts were confirmed when the creature opened the mouth, revealing the dozens of sharp white teeth, and gave a small hiss-like shriek before it began to slither around. Naruto twitched his hands and the creature shifted away from Kurama's foot. Two more of the creatures popped from under the dirt and moved towards the blonde. What are... Naruto began to whisper, only to stop when the creatures hissed and looked at him. It was hard to tell when they didn't have eyes. One moved closer to his foot, and he lifted it out of instinct. The two others hissed and moved to investigate. Naruto grimaced when Jiraiya glared at him. It wasn't his fault the damn things were so weird. They were also covered in a mix of dirt and some kind of slime. Gross. Naruto kept his foot up and tried not to wobble. The slimy snakes slithered around the area where his foot was for another moment before they began to slowly retreat into the ground. Naruto, relaxing, let his foot drop back to the ground. The snake shot at the dirt with loud hissing. Haku and Sasuke acted on reflex, their weapons coming alive as they fired dust crystals at the snakes. One head was sliced from the body immediately, and the other had a few new holes in its side. The last and the injured shrieked loudly as they retreated. Oh, damn it, you idiots! Don't your teachers teach you anything? Jiraiya groaned loudly under his breath. The man returned between the four teens and started to rise up further and further before the ground broke and Team Nox jumped away. Naruto officially cut off from his group. He could only stare at what had done the deed. A massive black worm emerged from the mound. It had a white beak-like mask on its face, designed with red and yellow lines that seemed faded or caked in dirt. White spikes protruded from its back and sides. The beak, comprised of a large single solid top, a skinny bottom, and two mandibles that extended out from the bottom, opened, and a loud roar escaped the Grimm's mouth. The worm The worm fell forward, facing Naruto, and from its open beak, the three slimy snakes slithered out, their tongues. Haku exclaimed from behind the creature. Naruto slammed his fists together, and his gauntlets unfolded out over them. The sounds made the worm roar again before it trudged forward and dove into the ground. Naruto shifted around, turning and looking for signs of the new foe. Naruto, do not move, Jiraiya called from where he stood. Don't you fucking breathe! Naruto balled his hands into fists. This was like some sort of cheesy horror film. He was not going to die at the hands of some sort of worm grim. Screw that! Come on, you fat son of a... Naruto's taunt was cut off as the ground exploded beneath him, and he was launched into the air. The worm roared again as he was swallowed whole. In hindsight, ignoring the older and more experienced husband was probably one of Naruto's dumbest mistakes of his life. Right up there behind loosened his V-card without a condom. As he was swallowed into the worm's giant-ass mouth, Naruto could only think, Yang is so not going to believe this. Naruto is so not going to believe this, Yang mumbled to herself with a smile as she and her team explored the ruins of Ill's failed expansion of Mount Glen. Leading them was the hyperactive Zipmaster, as Naruto dubbed him, Dr. Ublik. The caffeinated huntsman was currently explaining the benefits of Swi's presence to their objective. Ruby would make him proud, Black agreed with a small smile as the leader light her heart out as to why she brought Swi along. She was currently standing slightly behind Yang, but close enough to grab her in a moment's notice. I can't believe the two of you are siding with him again. He's not even here. Weiss argued with a small huff. She had no qualms about Swi's presence, of course, but the fact that Yang and Blake were encouraging Ruby to lie to their teacher and using Naruto as a supportive reason was mind-boggling to her. Well, I am his girlfriend, so what's your excuse, Blake? Yang asked, eyebrow raised as she looked at her partner. We're both ninjas, she said stoically. She smirked when Weiss gave her a dry stare. Really? You're just jealous of our ninjitude? Weiss groaned as she palmed her face. Is that what his secret is? Yang fished eagerly. Blake's smirk vanished slightly and her cheeks turned pink. No. Damn it. Yang frowned and crossed her arms. She pursed her lips. Did you two have drunk sex or something? When would we have ever done that? Blake asked slowly, while you were in the White Fang and moved around. Yang trailed off as Gamble Shroud's sharp tip pressed against her chin. Not here, not so loud, and for your information, Yang, not that it's any of your business, but I haven't done that with anyone yet. Are we clear? Blake hissed with narrowed and angry eyes. Like a crystal. Good. Blake huffed and sheathed her weapon. Yang waited a moment before she grinned. So why has the one pet the pussy yet, waiting for the right stud to monkey around with? Weiss, hold her down. Oh, kinky. Shame we don't have a camera. Think of the intake from those sales. I feel as though I'm missing something amazing right now, Jiraiya thought to himself with a frown as he and his godson's team followed the grim worm that had just eaten Naruto. They remained still, shocked by the sudden devouring of the whiskered blonde. As the worm dove into the ground, they were snapped from their shock when they saw the mountain speed away from them despite the negative emotions they were most likely emitting. Jiraiya had an idea as to why. What the hell is this thing? Kurama asked in annoyance. If my guess is right, something that should not still exist, Jiraiya said. He scowled as the mountain dropped and the worm dove several feet under the dirt. Oh, come on, what is it doing now? They felt the ground rumble and looked down. Hey, no rising dirt, but what was a public access speaker squealed to life, and Kurama's hands clapped over his ears. God son of a bitch, mother! I hate PA systems. Get to the rocks! A male voice called over the PA. Jiraiya, get those boys on the giant ass rocks. Bunner, you old paranoid bastard! I could kiss you, Jiraiya mumbled. He looked to the three teens. You heard the voice of our savior. Go to the rocks. What about Naruto? Haku asked. He'll be fine. I think Jiraiya grimaced at the thought of something horrible happening to his godson. Kushina and Minato would return from the grave to kick his ass. Shaking the thought from his mind, the older huntsman led the three boys to a nearby gathering of giant rocks, which they jumped onto. They scourged the land for any sign of the subterranean grim, and just when they'd given up hope, there was a massive explosion of dirt about 50 feet in front of them. Grim's head fell out of the sky and landed just beside the rock. A putrid odor escaped the Grim's corpse, and more body parts landed around them. Kurma had already ripped the hem of his shirt to cover his face, not caring if his stomach was exposed. Oh God, they smelled like shit. Kurma groaned. He swallowed down the bile that threatened to expose his throat. Yeah, they do. Sasuke agreed with a gag. He looked around. Well, guess we better start looking for pieces. I'll let you tell Yang her boyfriend's dead, Haku. Sasuke. Haku glared at the teen. I was just kidding, jeez. Sasuke rolled his eyes. The idiot is way too stubborn to die. Besides, it isn't like this is the first time that this happened. It wasn't funny. I thought it was funny, Sasuke muttered to his partner. The Faunus was too distracted by his desire to control his body functions to respond. Okay, you've all had your fun. Jiraiya chuckled as he hopped down from the rock they stood on. He pointed at a distant glowing form, hard to make out because of the sun's rays. Let's go make sure he's fine before we do anything else. Right. In the meantime, mind telling us who our savior was? I want to give them a big kiss of gratitude for introducing me to such a lovely smell. Kurama grumbled as he jumped away from the slowly dissolving carcass pieces. The four began to walk before Haku looked alarmed. Wait, what do you mean this isn't the first time this happened? Out. Light. Stay at the light, boy. Get away from the light. Live, damn you, live. These were the words Naruto slowly woke to. That and an annoying pounding on his chest. There was a sharp clack and a soft hum, like something was charging up. Naruto browsed forward. Why did he know that sound? It sounded clear! Defibrillator. No! Naruto's eyes snapped open. His hand shot up to catch the wrist of his would-be shocker. Blue eyes stared into Maniac Brown for a moment before the latter closed and a sigh escaped their owner. It was an older gentleman in his late 60s to early 70s, a tan cap with the words amend this around the reticular sat on his head. The man was dressed oddly, like one would expect of a huntsman. He wore practical desert camouflage and a tan utility vest over the top. Avatar sunglasses hung from his collar, and a graying mustache covered his upper lip like a dying caterpillar. Oh, thank the Almighty! I was afraid I'd have to actually perform open heart surgery. Would have taken a few minutes, so it would have been for naught. But still, had to try. I'm glad you didn't. Naruto mumbled. He lowered his arms and winced, turning his attention to the right limb. A thick white bandage was wound from his knuckles to his elbow. What the? Graboid stomach acid, a mix of the meanest chemicals you'll ever encounter, eats through everything, metal, flesh, bone. The man sighed and pat Naruto on the shoulder. He looked over to Naruto's left and then back at the blonde. Had to remove your weapons before they completely ate through your armor. A few drops got to the right, but they'll heal soon enough. Sorry about your sluggers, kid. Those were a practical innovation for a close combatant like you. Ugly as sin, though, your first craft. Yeah, Naruto mumbled. He looked to the side where the man had glanced and grimaced. What were his powerful, brick-like behemoth of gauntlets were now two puddles of orange smears. That acid had to be something if it ate through his gauntlets like that. The last time he got eaten by something that big, they hadn't even taken a dent. Oh, good. The cavalry's here. The old guy stood up and folded his hands behind his back. Jiraiya, always a pleasure. Bunner, you paranoid son of a bitch. You didn't say anything about a goddamn grabloid in the area. I thought you said they were extinct. Jiraiya growled. Naruto looked between the two men before Haku came over and helped him to his feet. Oh, you're right, Naruto? Haku asked. Yeah, I guess. Naruto mumbled, still a bit upset over his gauntlet's demise. Man, first the King Daijutsu, and now the worm thing. You must love getting eaten, huh, Naruto? Sasuke asked with a smirk. I must taste like ramen or something. Naruto agreed with a nod. He gained a small frown. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What I do know is that you smell worse than you did before. Ugh, wet dog. It's assaulting my senses. Kurama grumbled. He crossed his arms over his chest. Still, I'm glad to see your stupidity factor saved your ass again. Invincible idiot power. I'm jealous, and yet so glad I don't have it. Sasuke nodded. You guys are assholes, Naruto huffed. I get eaten and all you do is call me stupid. The whisker blonde yelped when Naruto cuffed him upside the head. They're damn right, you're stupid. I told you not to move. And what do? You fucking move. No wonder you got eaten. And on top of that, you went and ruined your gauntlets. Wow, I feel so loved, Naruto mumbled. He received another smack upside the head. Shut up, brat, before I change my mind. Jiraiya grumbled back. He looked at the man, Booner, and nodded. Give him up, Booner. They're his by bloodline. Do I have to? Gert frowned. Kurama turned to him. His jaw popped open and a shaky hand lifted up. Gert Booner, the Gert Booner, the man who perfected a 45 caliber multi-purpose pocket knife. See, this is why he and Ruby aren't allowed to hang out, Sasuke said loudly to his team leader. We've been over this, Sasuke. Ruby needs his help. Naruto rolled his eyes. He couldn't help that Kurama and Ruby clicked where it came to being weapon nerds. Granted, Ruby was far more into the art than the faunus, but Kurama was the only one who had a small chance of getting Ruby to overcome her social awkwardness. Hell, it worked wonders on John, sort of. Okay, he's still a work in progress, but there is still merit to the plan. Not to mention, Yang offered a big reward to if Naruto's plan now showed promise, but that was beside the point. And no, it wasn't sex, technically anyway. Moving on. Gert seemed to beam at Kurama's words. He sent a smug look at the annoyed Jiraiya before he looked back at the starstruck Faunus. I see you read my articles in the last month's Dust and Bullets, Gert said. He held his hand up. Gert Booner, huntsman, weaponsmith, and proud member of the Free Arms of Remnant Association. It's an honor, sir. Kurama took the hand and shook it. I didn't know how to properly prepare my well. Will you do me the honor? Kurama offered his staff forward, and Gert gave it a once-over with just his eyes. Well, now, look at that. An impressed whistle left the older huntsman's lips as he carefully took the staff. Or a channeling, the lined barrel, collapsible, combat-ready ring monk staff. Been a long time since I've seen one of these. It was based off of his father's. Jiraiya threw in with a small smirk. Yes, it certainly is. Gert handed the staff back and used the finger to wipe the tear away from his eye. My boy, you've done me a grand justice, all right, Jiraiya. I'll cough it up. Good. And you've got your, right, don't you? Jiraiya asked. Gert turned to him and smirked as he pulled his sunglasses from his collar. Of course I do. What do you think drew the Grabloid's attention away? A remote control truck? He lifted up his left hand and held a clicker up. A press of a button, and what looked like a rock formation not too far away shimmered for a moment before it revealed a squealed tan-colored truck that looked better to run down anything in its path. Naruto was certain that even water wouldn't hold that thing off. Can I drive? Jiraiya asked eagerly. Hell no. Oh, come on, Booner. We're buddies. You can't drive a go-kart at the Vital Festival, much less Bessie. Oh, goody, old people arguing, Sasuke muttered in mild annoyance as Gert led them over to the truck. Who you calling old, boy? I don't want to hear it, fanboy. Welcome to Booner's bunker. Gert led the group of 5 into the underground home. We got air conditioning and filters, solar generators, water filters, food for years, and I know you'll like this one, Kurama. Gert flipped the switch, and a wall opened up, revealing a grand amount of weaponry that looked like it had come from all over the Four Kingdoms. Some looked like they outdated the Four Kingdoms, like they've been pulled from the war themselves. The 14 stared at the collection, no, the armory that they faced. Haku wandered over to a massive broadsword that looked like a cleaver. How did you get this? He asked, his eyes wide. Gert smiled lightly. I made that. It's a functioning replica based off of the demon's blade. He may have done a lot of dirty deeds with his, but it's a damn beautiful weapon, and he treated it well. The old man sighed with a nod. Give anything to see one of the Fog's 7 swords in real life again. Not fight it, though. Again? Sasuke asked at the man. I once encountered the shark shaver once. Gert explained with a grimace. He rolled down his left sleeve, revealing a shredded scar on his forearm. Nearly tore the whole damn thing off. Barely escaped with my life. Got lucky. That some bitch drew too much attention with his aura. The masculine scream. You ignore anything else I ever say, boys. But goddamn if you do listen to me now. The 14s turned to the older huntsman, who held a grave look of seriousness in his normally manic eyes. He met each of their gazes and then pointed at his still exposed arm. If any of you ever meet the maskless Grim, you turn tail and you run. You run until you can't run anymore. That thing cannot be stopped. You understand? Naruto, Kurama, Haku, and Sasuke nodded. They'd all been a bit unnerved by his words and the way Jiraiya leaned on the wall with a similar serious look on his face. That wasn't natural, and it put the four on edge. Good. Gert smiled and rolled his sleeves back up. Now you, Naruto, you're a close combat, huh? Yeah, sure. That's what I thought. Gert nodded and walked over to a wall of gauntlets and greaves. He pulled open a drawer beneath what had to be the most over-the-top armed cannon in history. Seriously, it had like 85 different sizes and shapes of ammunition popping out of the front, and began to dig through it. Let's see now, where did I... No, here it is. Still in prime condition. Naruto tried to peer over the man's shoulders and jumped when he turned around so suddenly, his hands behind his back. Your name. Was it given or earned? Gert asked. What? His mother was an Uzumaki, Booner. Dropped the paranoia for a minute and just gave him the damn thing. Well, excuse me for wanting to make sure he could use them without losing an arm or something. Wait, what? Naruto asked, highly alarmed. Ignore him. Naruto, he's just trying to scare you. Jiraiya pushed off of the wall and walked forward, his arms still crossed. He glared at the older man. Booner, give him the goddamn gloves. Oh, fine. Spoil sport, Gert grumbled. He pulled his hands from behind his back to reveal two leather fingerless black gloves with a steel scale-like plate on the back, and carved into the plate was a spiral that matched the emblem on Naruto's clothes. These are the Raising Guard Naruto Uzumaki, worn by the head bodyguards of the Uzumaki tribe hundreds of years ago, before they were scattered by the war. Gert dramatically presented the weapons. They're simple, elegant, and while they don't have a ballistic function, they do have a rather impressive kick, only available to those of the Uzumaki bloodline. Naruto could only stare at the gloves. He started to tune Gert out as he took them into his hands. Slowly he pulled them on, and it felt like something he'd been missing had finally been returned to him. He didn't know it, but his eyes flashed gold, and the spirals on the steel lit up. With the gloves on his hands, Naruto flexed his fingers a few times before he balled his hands into fists and slammed them together. The plates on the back of the gloves lifted up, and from beneath them, more scaled plates extended out. The others watched with amazement as Naruto's arms were enveloped to the elbow by the scaled gauntlets, which were now more sleek and slender rather than large and bulky. They were almost organic, natural, like they belonged on Naruto's arms. Hell, it was like they were Naruto's arms. Okay, I'm a little jealous, Sasuke mumbled as he soaked into the gleaming steel that reflected light at him. Never before had he thought weapons could be sexy, but he'd be damned if he didn't now. It was like looking at the latest sport car to come out of Mistral. Yep, they're pretty alright, Jiraiya said. He smirked and nodded at Gert, who grinned and took a few steps back. Naruto, channel some of your ore into the hands. Point your palms down at your side first, Gert advised. Okay. Naruto mumbled as he did what he was instructed. His palm faced the floor, and a fraction of his aura flowed into his hand. A golden glow shone beneath his palm that quickly intensified before he lifted off the ground. Oh ho ho! Off balance from the unnatural feeling, Naruto spun out and crashed into a shelf. He groaned from the ground and grunted when a book fell into his head. He got to his feet and looked at his hands. I can fly. Holy shit, he can fly, Kurama muttered with wide eyes. His sunglasses slipped down to his nose slightly to reveal the underside of his brow, though his eyes themselves remained unseen. Sasuke and Haku looked equally dumbfounded by this discovery. That's not all. Now try throwing a punch and think of sending the aura behind you. Think out of your elbow, Gert suggested with a wide grin on his face. Naruto, eager to learn more about his new weapons, settled into a stance and prepared a punch. The aura moved naturally to where he thought due to his control. When he threw the punch, he cleared the width of the already large room, and his fist embedded itself in the wall next to Jiraiya. What's the name again? Naruto asked as he pulled his hand from the wall. Rosengard, the room repeated. Two speakers assumed amused, while the other three were in awe. Rosengard, Naruto mumbled. He grinned, and his semblance flared to life for a brief moment. The spirals in the back of his hands of flowing gold and several spiraling runes appeared along the steel plates. Welcome aboard, Rosengard. Hope I don't let you down. I don't think I don't think you will, Naruto. Jiraiya smiled as he clapped a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto smiled back up at him as his semblance died down. Almost naturally, Rasengard folded away without any jerking or effort on Naruto's part. The whiskered blonde looked down at the gloves and for a moment thought he saw several different color stands across the back. Greens, reds, blues, primary aura shades that were common among remnant and some huntsmen and huntresses. Strange, but again, Naruto felt as if it were natural, like Rasengard was alive. Well, now that Naruto has his family birthright, let's get down to business. Jiraiya's voice snapped Naruto from his thoughts. The whiskered blonde turned to look at his godfather, along with his team and Gert. Jiraiya had a frown on his face, and his arms folded back over his chest. How many graboids are we dealing with? Thank you for coming. A man's deep voice naturally voiced his gratitude to the two other figures stood in a shadowed room. The one who spoke was a tall, spiky-haired male. The only features distinguishable in the darkness were his purple eyes, rippled and almost soulless as they observed the other two. A heavy cloak fell down over his shoulders, decorated with red mushroom clouds. Well, when one of our associates requests a gathering, it's only polite to show up, isn't it? A figure to the purple-eyed man's left was a shorter woman wearing a black cat burglar's mask to protect her identity from those who knew her face. Golden eyes peered out from behind the mask, and a small, coy smile was on her face. Speak for yourself. The last, a young man with dark red hair and what appeared to be dark horns poking over his head. In one hand was a long sheathed sword, and gloved hand around it gripped tightly. His lips curled down into a sneer as his grim mask modified to show his status in the now infamous White Fang faced the purple-eyed speaker. I only came to ensure you don't plot against us. A wise move. Shut up, Queen. Be silent, beast. The faunus snarled at the purple-eyed man when he spoke. What I have to say will affect our relationship, so listen well. I'm all ears, jackass. Fang. The woman, Queen, hissed. Whatever. The faunus Fang scoffed. He glared from behind his mask at the man. Say your piece so I can leave, man. Our plans have changed. The purple-eyed man's deep voice echoed in the cavern. The Fourth War has decided that we shall once more act alone. I inform you only out of respect and to warn you. What? The Queen glared at the purple-eyed man, and Fang gripping the hilt of his sword. Tossing us to the side already? That makes you a loose end. You won't leave this place alive, the White Fang member snarled as he began to draw his sword. The action made the ripple-eyed figure lift his hand and put his palm right in the faunus's face. There was a small flicker of aura before the faunus flew back at a high speed and slammed into the wall, creating a massive cloud of smoke. Faunus's sword fell to the ground as a pain cord escaped his lips. A warped pipe had pierced through the back of his right side and came through the front. Blood covered it. The faunus's head fell forward and was caught by the purple-eyed man's hand. You forgot your place, beast. I am no mere man. I am God, the self-proclaimed god warned as he gripped the faunus's jaw. Make a move against me or my acolytes, and you will find yourself in hell. Do you understand? Fuck you, ape. The Queen winced as Faunus's head was shoved through the wall, his neck bent at an odd angle. Thankfully, he wasn't dead, or was truly a miraculous thing. That was your last warning, beast. God rumbled lowly, his voice still neutral as when he began. He released the faunus's head and turned around to walk back towards the Queen, who took a minuscule step away as he towered over her. Rippled purple eyes regarded her for a moment, as like a huntsman observing a plant, trying to determine whether it was dangerous or not. Fang is brash and stupid. I am not. Queen decided to speak after a moment. I sincerely hope that's true, as you should know that only a fool stands against God. I see all. I know all. 5 more figures appeared at his side, each with the same eyes as the first. They circled the Queen and stared her down from every angle. Queen trembled as their aura flared lightly, filling the room with malicious intent. The original man leaned forward and gently cupped her chin, tilting her head up to meet his near lifeless, yet still mesmerizingly bright eyes. "I warn you out of professional courtesy," he said lowly. His grip on her chin tightened, and the queen grabbed at his wrist. "If you or the beast choose to stand against us, you will know true pain." The grip on her chin disappeared when the six figures vanished, as if they were never there. Queen dropped to her knees and trembled, her hands slowly moving up to grab her arms, hugging herself tightly. Golden eyes were wide, and they stared at the ground. What kind of monster? I didn't know there were more of them. Oh God. Queen lifted one of her hands to her forehead, and she shuddered. Her teeth grit tightly together, and her eyes squinted shut. "Get it together, get it together. He's messing with your mind. Don't let him win. Breathe, breathe. Okay, good." Queen got back to her feet and exhaled roughly. She then snapped her gaze over to Fang, who blearily pulled his head out of the hole it was shoved in. Queen's golden eyes narrowed. "First, make sure he knows not to mess with the Fourth War. We've done too much to let his racism risk it all. Adam, we need to talk." End of chapter 22.